8 volcanoes, one country, erupting at the same time, right now. This is not a drill. This is not a simulation. This is Indonesia. This week, and the numbers coming out of the Ring of Fire are staggering. Marapi, Semeru, Krakatoa, Lewotobi, Dukono, Lewotolok, Marapi, 8 active volcanic systems, all erupting simultaneously, all monitored right now by scientists who are watching one of the most volatile stretches of the crust on planet Earth do something most of them have never seen at this scale before. Let's break down every single one, because each of these mountains has its own body count, its own history, and its own warning sign flashing red right now. Start with Krakatoa. You know this name even if you don't know you know it. In 1883, the original Krakatoa exploded so violently it destroyed 2/3 of the island it sat on. The blast was heard nearly 3,000 miles away. It remains one of the loudest sounds ever recorded in human history, registering on barometers as far away as London. The shockwave circled the entire planet multiple times. Somewhere around 36,000 people died, and almost none of them died from the fire. They died from the water. The collapse triggered tsunamis that obliterated coastal villages across the Sunda Strait, with waves recorded up to 135 feet high in the bays closest to the volcano. The volcano rebuilt itself. It's called Anak Krakatau, now the child of Krakatoa, and it has spent decades slowly reassembling itself inside the drowned crater left behind by its parents' collapse. In December of 2018, it did it again. A chunk of the unstable, freshly rebuilt cone, made of loose, poorly consolidated volcanic rock, collapsed into the sea. No earthquake, no warning. Just a wall of water that killed at least 437 people in a single night, most of them on crowded holiday beaches, who had no reason to run because the ground never shook first. Right now, Anak Krakatau is one of the 8 actively erupting, and it is rebuilding the exact same unstable shape that failed catastrophically the last time. Next, Marapi. This is Indonesia's most dangerous volcano by reputation, and the reputation is earned. Its name literally translates to Mountain of Fire. In 2010, Marapi erupted with pyroclastic flows so violent they killed 353 people, some of them incinerated in their homes, unable to outrun superheated gas and ash, moving down the slope faster than a car on the highway. That eruption forced the evacuation of more than 350,000 people. Marapi sits right next to Yogyakarta, a densely packed city of hundreds of thousands of people, close enough that its ash has fallen directly onto the streets of the city before it is erupting again this week. Semeru is next on the list. It is the tallest volcano on the island of Java, and it does not warn you before it acts. Semeru erupts almost constantly at a low level, sending small ash bursts skyward every few minutes on an ordinary day. But in December of 2021, a much larger eruption caught villages off guard and killed at least 51 people. Ash and pyroclastic material buried entire neighborhoods with almost no notice, collapsing a bridge that was one of the main evacuation routes and trapping people mid-escape. Semeru is one of the 8 erupting right now. Then there's Lewotobi, or more precisely, Lewotobi Laki-Laki, the more violent half of a twin volcano pair the locals call husband and wife, the calmer Lewotobi Perempuan, sitting just over a mile away. This mountain has barely stopped erupting since December of 2023, when it forced the evacuation of 6,500 people and shut down the local airport indefinitely. In November of 2024, it killed 9 people and burned homes to the ground, including a convent with nuns fleeing into the ash in the dark. One survivor, a hairdresser named Hermanus Might, described waking up as his bed shook, running outside to see flames shooting from the crater, and watching his salon burn to the ground with everything inside it. By June of 2025, the volcano was sending ash columns 11 kilometers into the sky, visible from 150 kilometers away, grounding flights across Bali for days. In July, it erupted twice in a single stretch, launching debris 5 kilometers from the crater, producing pyroclastic flows and canceling 24 flights in one go. This volcano is not calming down. It has been raised to Indonesia's highest alert level multiple separate times in under 2 years. It is one of the 8 erupting this week. Now Dukono, on the island of Halmahera. This is one of the most relentless volcanoes on the planet, a mountain that essentially never fully stops since March of this year alone. It has erupted close to 200 separate times. In May, it caught 20 hikers on its slopes by surprise, killing 3 of them, despite the mountain being officially closed to visitors since April. A tour guide who survived, Alex Dijangu, said the volcano had gone unusually quiet right before it blew, telling his group the day before that a major eruption was coming because pressure was silently building at the bottom of it. The crater. He was right. Dukono is erupting again right now. Ibu, also on Halmahera, is one of the most frequently active volcanoes anywhere in the world, capable of firing off explosive bursts multiple times a day for years on end without ever fully settling into dormancy. It has been erupting in some form for over a decade straight. It is part of this week's 8. Lewotolok, on the small island of Lembata, keeps sending ash plumes skyward with almost no rest between events, forcing repeated evacuation warnings for villages living directly in its shadow, some of whom have been displaced and returned home multiple times in just the past few years as the alert level rises and falls. It is erupting right now too. And finally, Marapi, in West Sumatra, one of the country's most active volcanoes and one of its deadliest in recent memory. Not to be confused with Marapi on Java, a different mountain entirely, which tells you something about just how crowded this archipelago is with dangerous, similarly named peaks. In December of 2023, Marapi erupted without warning while climbers were on its slopes, killing at least 23 or 24 of them, most of them university students on a weekend hike, who never made it back down. Months later, in May of 2024, heavy rain washed volcanic debris off Marapi's slopes and into residential areas below, killing more than 60 people in mudflows nobody saw coming. A stark reminder that a volcano's danger doesn't end when the eruption itself is over. It erupted again in October of 2024. It is erupting again this week. 8 volcanoes: Marapi, Semeru, Krakatoa, Lewotobi, Dukono, Ibu Lewotolok, Marapi, all active, all right now. So why does this keep happening here, and only here on this scale? The answer is geography, and it is brutal in its simplicity. Indonesia sits directly on top of the collision zone between 3 of the planet's major tectonic plates: the Indo-Australian plate, the Eurasian plate, and the Pacific plate. The Indo-Australian plate is being forced underneath the Eurasian plate along a subduction zone that runs the entire length of the archipelago, from Sumatra through Java, the Lesser Sunda Islands, and up into the Maluku region, where Dukono and Ibu sit. As that descending plate melts under pressure and heat, it feeds magma upward into more than 120 separate volcanic systems strung across the country like a fuse. Indonesia has more active volcanoes than any other country on Earth. It also has 270 million people living on top of that fuse, many of them in the shadow of a mountain that has already killed before and will, very likely, kill again. This isn't the first time this exact country has changed the world either. In 1815, a volcano called Tambora on the island of Sumbawa produced the most powerful eruption ever recorded in human history. It killed an estimated 70 to 100,000 people directly and through the famine that followed. It threw so much ash and sulfur into the stratosphere that it dimmed the sun across the entire planet. The following year, 1816, became known around the world as the year without a summer. Crops failed in Europe. Crops failed in North America. Snow fell in June in places that had never seen snow in June. One country, one mountain, and the entire planet felt it. That is the scale of what this landscape is capable of when it decides to go all the way. Nobody is saying that is happening right now. What scientists are watching is something different but still deeply unusual. 8 separate volcanic systems spread across 3 different island chains, all active in the same window of time, each one independently monitored, each one with its own alert level, each one capable of killing the people living closest, but to it without much warning at all. It's worth putting this week in context against the rest of the planet's volcanic activity, because Indonesia isn't operating in isolation. At the exact same time, these 8 mountains are active. Kamchatka's Shebelut volcano in Russia has been sending ash plumes as high as 28,000 feet. Mount Etna in Italy has had explosive activity strong enough to ground portions of Sicilian airspace. And the Philippines has its own eruption underway at Canlaon. Globally, this week alone has seen dozens of earthquakes above magnitude 5 and multiple volcanoes on entirely separate tectonic boundaries acting up within days of each other. Indonesia's 8 is the most concentrated cluster on the planet right now. But the wider ring of fire is not quiet either. The Indonesian government's volcanology agency, known as PVMBG, runs a 4-tier alert system for exactly this reason. Level 1 means normal background activity. Level 2 means the volcano is showing increased unrest and needs to be watched. Level 3 means people should stay well outside the mountain's typical danger zone. Level 4, the highest, means an eruption is either happening or considered imminent, and evacuation zones expand immediately. Right now, several of these 8 volcanoes are sitting at level 3. Some have hit level 4 multiple times in just the past year. Here's what should actually worry you about a pattern like this. Every one of these volcanoes has already demonstrated exactly how it kills. Krakatoa kills with tsunamis that arrive with no earthquake to warn you. Marapi kills with pyroclastic flows that move faster than you can run. Semeru kills by catching villages with almost no notice at all. Lewotobi kills by raining fire on homes in the middle of the night. Dukono kills hikers who think they understand a mountain that goes quiet right before it explodes. Marapi kills climbers on its slopes and then kills again months later when the rain washes its own debris down into the top villages below. These are not theoretical risks. These are documented, repeated, recent patterns of exactly how each of these mountains has already taken lives. And they are all doing it, in some form, in the same week. Here's a question almost nobody is asking, and it's worth asking carefully. Are these 8 eruptions connected to each other? Or is this simply coincidence? The honest scientific answer is nuanced. These volcanoes do not share a single magma chamber. Marapi and Krakatoa, for instance, sit hundreds of miles apart on entirely separate sections of the subduction zone. Fed by entirely separate pockets of rising magma, there is no evidence that one of these eruptions is triggering another in a direct chain reaction. But they are not unconnected either. Not really. All 8 sit on the exact same tectonic boundary, the same collision between the Indo-Australian and Eurasian plates, absorbing the exact same regional stress as that plate grinds its way underneath the archipelago year after year, inch by inch, when the entire boundary is under elevated stress. It is not unusual, statistically, for multiple points along it to become active in overlapping windows. Coincidence and shared cause are not mutually exclusive here. Both can be true at once. Air travel across the region has already been disrupted multiple times this year because of ash from just one of these 8. Lewotobi, grounding dozens of flights and forcing airlines to reroute around clouds of pulverized rock that can destroy a jet engine mid-flight, the same danger that has caused real aviation emergencies at volcanoes around the world before. Communities living near these mountains are used to living with volcanic risk in a way that most of the world simply isn't. Evacuation routes exist. Exclusion zones are marked. Monitoring stations track earthquakes, gas emissions, and ground deformation around the clock, exactly the kind of instrumentation that gives scientists their only real warning before an eruption escalates. But even with all of that in place, people keep dying. because a volcano that has been quiet for days or weeks can go from stable to lethal in minutes, and the people closest to it are the ones with the least time to react. So where does this leave us? 8 volcanoes, one country, all active, all being watched by scientists who understand this landscape better than almost anyone on the planet and still cannot tell you exactly which mountain moves next or when. What they can tell you is the mechanism behind all of it. 3 tectonic plates grinding against each other in one of the most geologically violent stretches of crust on Earth, producing a country that is both extraordinarily beautiful and, mountain by mountain, one of the most dangerous places to live on the entire planet. Here's what to actually watch for in the days ahead. Watch Lewotobi first, because it has the most volatile recent track record of the 8, cycling between quiet and violently explosive multiple times in the past 18 months alone, each time with almost no lead time between the two states. Watch Krakatoa specifically for any sign of flank instability, since its 2018 collapse proved this volcano's worst case scenario doesn't require a big eruption, just the wrong kind of small one, in the wrong place, on an already unstable cone. Watch Dukono and Ibu for any change in their normal, near-continuous explosive rhythm, since a volcano that erupts constantly can hide a genuinely dangerous escalation inside what looks like routine activity. Watch the official PVMBG alert levels for all 8, because a jump from level 3 to level 4 at any one of them means authorities believe an eruption is imminent or already underway, and evacuation zones will expand immediately when that happens. And watch the skies over Bali and the surrounding islands, because ash disruption to regional air travel is often the very first sign for people far outside the danger zone that one of these mountains has escalated again. None of this requires a doomsday scenario to matter. It just requires 8 mountains to keep doing exactly what they are doing right now on a landscape built by 3 colliding tectonic plates in a country that has already buried tens of thousands of people under exactly this kind of activity more than once, across more than 2 centuries of recorded history. We'll be tracking each of these 8 as this develops, and we'll let you know the moment anything changes.